Serious people who met their long-term romantic partners when they were over the age of 35. Could you tell us about how you met them and how the relationship developed? I was a single father for many years. Ex and I split when my kids were 4 and 2. Relationship was toxic and I left it after years of emotional abuse. It seemed that almost every woman either wouldn't date me because I had kids already and couldn't have more, or wanted to date me because they thought they could save me and help me with my kids. It was very frustrating and honestly stopped trying. Then went to a wedding. A woman asked if I wanted to dance. I was drunk, so I did. Thanked her for the dance and enjoyed the rest of the evening. Wedding shut down and getting ready to leave, and I see her sitting alone at a table. Not sure why, but something drove me to go talk to her. We chatted for a few minutes, then decided to go down the street to a coffee shop to talk more. We talked for a couple hours. She was a relative of one of the people who got married in from out of town for the wedding. I was friends with the other person who got married. Turns out we were both going to the day after party the next day. So after talking for hours, we said we would see each other tomorrow. Got to the day after party the next morning and I had my kids with me. She had her daughter with her. The kids were roughly the same age and got to playing with each other. We talked more as it seemed the rest of the party was nothing but background noise. She was staying at a hotel close by and asked if my kids would like to go swimming later that afternoon. My kids enthusiastically say yes. So yes, it was. We are poolside watching all the kids playing, and knowing they were going back home the next day, I asked if her and her daughter wanted to join me and my kids for dinner at a nearby restaurant. They said yes and we all went for dinner. After dinner we all went to our respective places. But not before exchanging phone numbers. It seemed like a polite gesture on both our parts as she lived 2,000 km away. She was catching an early flight the next day and I was awakened to her calling me to say goodbye. We talked for a bit, and before she had to board I told her to call me when she got home. She did, and we spoke twice a day for weeks. I wasn't sure what this all was, but I knew I looked forward to us talking daily. During those weeks, a friend of a friend whom I had been social with asked me out on a date. I turned her down as I felt it would be cheating on my phone friend. It was at that point I realized I felt more for her than I realized. I kept that inside, as to me it was insane that I was falling for someone I had only met in person for a total of about 12 hours. We continued to talk on the phone, and one day she said she was thinking of moving to the city I lived in. She felt the same about me and she wanted to see if there was a relationship there. And she rationalized that her moving to where I was would be easier as her ex lived a few hours away and it would be easier for him to see his daughter. Well, she moved up here and got her own place. We started dating. Months later we moved in together. Years later we got married. A decade later we are still together and love each and every day. And #X200B. Edit. Thanks to everyone for the kind words. Really didn't expect my story on how I met my wife to blow up like this. I appreciate that many found it uplifting. Hope you are all safe and well. Not quite 35, but around then. I'd just gone through a truly hellish breakup. I did not think I would be able to trust another human behind again, and was genuinely comfortable with the idea of never being in another romantic relationship. Then there was this woman in my building who just seemed to materialize out of nowhere. One day she moved in and became a constant presence. I started noticing her all the time. In the building. Local stores. It was like when she was in a room, her presence alone drowned out all the other people. She was totally impossible to ignore. I know this sounds cliché, but there really was just something about her. So I decided just because I wouldn't ever have another romantic relationship didn't mean I couldn't have female friends. So I got to know her. I waited for an opportunity to introduce myself. When she was moving something heavy up to her place, we became fast friends. There was obvious attraction on both sides, but I fought it at every turn because I was so determined to never hurt like I had been hurt in my previous relationship. We talked about it on and off, but I always hid behind relationships end. Friendships are forever, and I want you in my life forever. She was definitely frustrated, but eventually she stopped pushing it and started dating other guys. Then after a long while of being very close friends, I got sick. Not cold or flu sick. Very seriously hospital sick. She completely stepped up to the plate without my even asking her to. She helped me coordinate my leave of absence from work. She helped me find specialist doctors. She took over the cooking of meals and made sure my apartment didn't fall into total disarray. She listened to me when I was scared. And she gave me space when I needed to be alone. It was around then that I realized I had a real-life partner on my hands. And I could risk being hurt by entering into a relationship. Or I could guarantee hurting myself by allowing fear to deprive me of sharing life with this woman. We are now over a decade happily married. TLDR. I spent the earlier years of my life in a bad relationship and let the breakup deter me from dating for a long time. When I met the one, I thought it would be safer to just be friends. So wasted a lot of time. Eventually I woke up, realized what I had, and married her before she could change her mind about me. I came from a domestic violence background. Divorced my husband of nearly 20 years back in 2003. I was in my mid-40s at the time. The state we lived in revoked his parent rights because of DV, and I ended up with full custody of my 2 daughters with permission to relocate out of the state. Left in early summer 2005 without saying goodbye for obvious reasons and moved 1,600 miles away to New England, and he never knew where we went. I rebuilt our lives over again from scratch. As we couldn't bring anything with us. Just what few belongings we could pack in our car to make the trip to NA. I was a single parent and alone for the first 14 years I lived up here in New England. But didn't mind it at all. New England rocks. Totally love this place. It's home. Like really home. Super nice people. Very kind. Though mostly quiet. Unless you're visiting Boston. Lol. Though I love to visit Boston for fun music and sporting events. Love that fun and crazy town. In November 2018, when I was 57, I went to a local small live music venue. Not looking to meet anyone and going. Just went by myself to enjoy the music. Great live jam band on stage. When I walked into the venue, this guy at the bar looked at me and it was like he did a double take. I remember thinking it was odd at the time. But thought, hey, probably just my imagination. Walked up to the bar to get a drink and he strikes up a conversation with me. We chatted and danced the entire evening. When the band finally packed it in around midnight, he gave me his business card with his cell phone on it. But didn't ask me for my contact information. Just totally left it up to me to decide whether to contact him or not. Plus his business card with his name on it gave me the ability to check if this guy really was who he said he was. He was. The next morning I decided I'd enjoyed myself and felt comfortable texting him back. Thanking him for the fun I'd had the previous evening. He responded in kind and asked me out to dinner for that following evening. I said yes. We've been together since. Having a blast with this guy. We both just really clicked. Sometimes it happens when you least expect it. I used to run in the Falmouth Road Race every year, and one year, 1988, I had an ingrown toenail and could not run. A friend of mine knew a girl, a friend of his wife. who did not have a race number and asked me if she could have it so that she could run. I said yes and met her at the spaghetti supper the race would put on the Friday night before the race on Sunday. We dated off and on for a few months after the race, and gradually only dating each other in 1989. We were married in 1990 and will be married 30 years this August. Still very happy. I was 37 when we got married. My wife was 36. Was a single dad for upwards of 10 years. Mostly raising the kids on my own. Didn't date much in the early years because I was focused on home life and work. Dating in my 50s with teenage kids in the house was difficult because most of the women in my age demographic were already done with raising children and weren't keen to return to it. I was facing the possibility that I may not find someone when I met a lady near my age, with a son who was a few years younger than my youngest. A good thing about dating when you're older is you have a lot of time to reflect on who you are and what you want in a so. Sue checked all the boxes. Intelligent, shared values, integrity, honesty, and beautiful to boot. We dated extensively. Did weekend outings when schedules allowed. Made time to spend together to know this was the choice we wanted to make. In 2018 we sold our respective houses and bought a new one together. Kids, 2 in uni, 1 in high school. We were married on my 60th birthday. Okay. I'll bite, sorry it's so long. But it's really a good story. Trust me, I was 33 working as an firefighter EMT at a local department, and had just recently returned from Iraq a year or two before. The dating scene was just not happening. And I was feeling pretty low. My department helped out at a local women's show expo kind of thing every year, doing a fashion show, selling our beefcake calendars and date auction for charity. I decided to give it a shot, hoping maybe I would find someone, at least for a date, paid for by my department. I had Army Reserve training the day of the event, and barely made it to the expo. We all did our spin on the catwalk. Fortified by some liquid courage, think Chris Farley's Chippendale skit, my turn came for the date auction portion of the show. And I was a bit nervous, hoping something good would happen. Suddenly, a bidding war erupted between these two ladies, with the winner topping out at $200. Best haul for our charity all night. After the show, I got to meet my potential date. She was just as nervous as I was. I'm not sure what we talked about that night. I was wowed by her smile and beautiful blue eyes. I found out later she wasn't sure about going to the expo, but wanted one of those awesome brooms one of the booths sell. She stopped by the stage to see our show, and was encouraged by some of my female coworkers to bid on me. I'm so glad the other lady ran out of cash, because I knew right away this lady was the one. We met for our date a week or so later, and it was just the best time ever. We spent the whole dinner talking and laughing. We continued to see each other, and a year later we married. This year makes 13 wonderful and love-filled years since I found my true love shaking my butt on stage. I always smile and laugh when this question comes up at parties. Most folks don't know their worth in life. I know I'm worth at least $200. It's never too late to find the one. Sometimes you just need to wait things out.